This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. Sunday night is fight night here on the channel, and we'll be talking plenty of MMA and boxing with a couple of guests along the way. Really looking forward to getting stuck into it. We are, of course, live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter at the moment, and if you prefer your podcast in audio form, you can get this show and all the other shows produced by A.C.E Podcast Nation through the Sports Social Podcast Network, and then that takes you to all the various podcast platforms around the internet. We're available on all of them, Danny Batten Fight Show. So please do give us a follow, a subscribe on YouTube, all those good things. Help us grow and get up those search engines. But yes, the fights are back in the UFC with a bang, which was good to see. So we'll have a little chat about that later. We've also got boxing pundit Ben Doughty joining us about 9 o'clock-ish. But first and foremost, I'm delighted first to welcome my usual co-host. He's a former Cage Warriors champion, a UK MMA legend. It is Mr. Danny Batten. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, you're right, Si, and listeners. Yeah, you couldn't explain it any better. It come back with a bang. There's some awesome fights. Amazing. Can't wait to review them a little later.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Loads to talk about, mate. Loads to talk about. Obviously, we got some boxing news. There's some fights being announced, some big fights being announced. But before we get to all of that, I'm delighted to welcome our guest this evening. He's on a 9-fight win streak. It is Cage Warriors lightweight, some would say top contender, Mr. Michal Figlak. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
All good, mate. Really looking forward to having a chat with you. And then this is purely selfish and a personal thing for me, but I want to ask you first and foremost about the kind of the fight and the rivalry that you had with a friend of mine, a friend of the show, which is Oban Elliott, because it got a bit tasty in the build-up, and it, you know, look, I'm open, I'm honest and stuff. I thought Oban was gonna kind of starch through you, and I thought it was going to be. It's just the way it is.
A lot of people did, but yeah, I came into Cage Warriors for slaughter. Yeah, that's what I think. The Cage Warriors thought was going to happen. Everyone around thought was going to happen. So obviously, me and Oban, we go back quite a bit because we trained together at one stage, and then he went over to some team, and then things some weird things started going on where I was hearing that he's talking shit about me basically, and then I confronted him about it. But yeah, and then when I saw him in the hotel, obviously some people thought that it was planned or something, that I'm gonna go at him, but it wasn't. All it was I just saw him and I went for it because back then people didn't really think much of me, let's say. Especially people who were like more casual fans rather than the people who follow the UK MMA scene. So they just thought that. So I never had any interviews or anything before that fight, and he did. And then he started talk shit about me in those interviews. So I said, all right, if I see him or something, I did, to be honest, I didn't know what I was going to do when I see him and things like that. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, all right, I'm just going to have a chat with him. And then that escalated, and we had that thing on Cage Warriors, that a little bit of an altercation. And then it just went from there, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of the rivalry, yeah, I think it was very good. It was a very good experience as well. And I have nothing against him anymore. I think that's done. That chapter in my life is closed, and I wish him all the best. I'm not a person who like hates somebody, or I'm not a hater. I never hated on him or anything like that. So I wish him all the best. And his, like I always say this, someone else's success won't hinder mine. So I wish everyone success until they sign a contract to fight me, and then when they sign to fight me, then it's war. Then I don't have. There is no friends. There is no talking shit backstage or talking shit in the interviews, and then people come up to each other and shake hands and things like that. I mean, what are you doing, guys? You're gonna literally, if the referee wasn't there, we are gonna try to kill each other. So so people can come in and shake hands and hug each other and talk about how well their camp has gone. If someone crosses the line with me, kind of a thing, my mentality is always, I'm going to fight you, and I'm prepared to die, and I'm prepared to do some damage to you until the referee stops the fight.
Interesting stuff. I think it's one of those. There's part of it, like it's the fight game, and at the end of the day, and like you say, when you go in to fight anyone, it's war, and it's going to be you or the other guy who's coming out of it victorious, and you're all working to be the guy who comes out victorious. But you mentioned, like, when you came in there to fight Oban, everyone did kind of write you off, and you didn't have the interviews, and you were almost like an afterthought in terms of the not an afterthought, maybe is the wrong word, but like everybody thought you were going to lose.
Yeah.
So like from that point of view, when you're going into that fight, does it give you like an extra motivation to kind of make a point and say, hang on a minute, there's two people in this fight and I'm here to win?
I just believe in myself. So I know what I'm doing. I'm training. I've been training for 10 years now, literally every day, putting everything into this sport. So when I go out into the cage, I'm very confident. And, people if saying this or saying that will never throw me off. I'm there ready to go. Literally, when I enter the cage, I open out my arms because for me, it's like, this is it now. If I come out of here or not, I don't really care. This is where I face everything, basically. So those things like fans getting involved and saying that I'm going to lose and things like that, yeah, it definitely drives me even more, because it just makes it just makes the victory so much sweeter, and it makes the occasion better and puts more pressure on me. And I love it. Whenever there's pressure on me, I just perform even better. So if there is people hating on me or thinking that I'm going to lose or anything like that, I love it.
My phone just playing the show. And obviously, like, you've gone on from the fighting Oban and your first fight in Cage Warriors to go and rack up another 3 or 4 victories, and looked pretty impressive in each fight for different reasons as well. Like, I think you can see, like, obviously the fight with Oban was only, like, it was a couple of rounds. Well, it went into the 3rd round in the end, didn't it?
Sure.
And then you've kind of had a couple of, the last 2 have gone to decision, and you've had a mixture. You've had a doctor stoppage, you've won by punches, but I think you can see a definite improvement with each fight. You've shown a different aspect to your game. Do you feel as if from that first fight in Cage Warriors to now, you've seen a big improvement in yourself?
Yes, yeah, that's one of the great things that I've managed to notice recently, because I would watch my fights from the Oban fight and all the Cage Warriors fights, and I can see that I'm looser, that I'm that I position myself better, I'm faster, and things like that, and I can see that improvement, and that's very important for me, because I want to keep improving, and this is what kind of what's very good for me is I can see that literally from the fight with Kieran Lister to the last fight I've had, I've improved so much, and it's only it was only like 3 months in between or 2 months in between, and I can see the improvements were made very well. So I'm happy with how I'm progressing. It's all about just keeping. It's all about being perfect. Yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I'm trying to be perfect. I know that it's impossible to be perfect, but I'm always striving for it. And from fight to fight, I'm trying to always improve and get closer to that perfection. You keep getting closer and improving.
And in terms of like what's next for Michal Figlak, like where do you feel is the next route for you from a fight point of view?
So I want the title shot really, because I fought Kieran Lister after he fought Joe McColligan. His only loss was Joe McColligan, and I beat him. Now, to be honest, when I heard that Joe McColligan vacated the title, I kind of thought, all right, I'm next in line pretty much. And then they were giving it to someone else, so I thought, all right, okay, I'm gonna have another fight. That one is 100% gonna cement me as the number one guy in the division. And if you look back through the last 15 months, I've been the most active lightweight. I've made the most noise, and I've beaten everyone they put in front of me. So I'm definitely up there. But to be honest, now I know that Joe McColligan is coming back. I've heard that he is coming back. He hasn't just vacated the title and retired or anything like that. So I think the title is still his, right? So I'm happy to fight him. Let's get the fight on with him.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, look, there's as soon as I announced that you were coming on the show earlier in the week, a friend of mine who knows his stuff sort of said Michael should be fighting for the lightweight title. There's no doubt about it, because no one else is on the same sort of win streak. No one else has shown the same range of skills, stoppages. You've shown you can go the distance. You've shown you can stop people. It is what it is, but hopefully that for you anyway, that's the next bout, because there's obviously there's a Cage Warriors card coming in March, I think it is, isn't it? The next one. But if for whatever reason the title shot's not there, is there anyone which you've got your sort of eyes on outside of that? Or
apart from that, I don't really care. Literally, I'm just focused on the belt. I don't care who else. If I need to fight, if I really need to fight someone else, let's just have it. I'll just get on with it and beat him, obviously, and then I'll just keep proving that I am the number one guy, and then I'll take out the whole division before Joe McColligan comes back. That's what's been happening. It seems like I've been clearing out the division for everyone else, and then there's someone else is fighting for the title. It's like, what the hell is going on? Yeah.
Interesting. Danny, what have you made of Michael's sort of rise? So, like, obviously, me and you, we talked about the Oban fight. We've had Oban on multiple times. I speak to him fairly frequently.
Yeah.
I
like a fighter that recognises the improvements in himself, wherever that may be, whether it's in a specific area, the ground, the striking, the wrestling. But it's nice that he recognises that he feels looser, because one of the observations that I definitely noticed is just the looseness to express his skill set in there. And that become apparent really in the last two fights, I would say. If someone wanted to get Michal Figlak out of there, they should have done it really in his early days, but he's just becoming more of an unstoppable force from what I'm seeing. It's going to take someone to either step up their training in some way or make a new breakthrough on their level, or it's going to take someone new to come on the block to challenge him right now. Anyone's beatable on any given day. I'd still say that for anyone. But right now, I think this is the man to watch, and this is the man to beat. And and just hearing him talk, he talks with confidence but not arrogance. And this is someone that's developed with that correct type of maturity that takes it to the top and is able to become a champion, stay a champion, and move on and take championships elsewhere. I take it that you've got aspirations to go beyond Cage Warriors. Some people have different ideas of routes to their successes in their journey and their career. Some want to go Bellator, some want to go KSW. Most, I would suggest, want to go UFC. Where have you got your eyes sighted on?
Yeah, exactly. UFC. I've entered this game to literally fight the best guys. So I never shy away from fighting the best guys. Whoever they offer me, I want to fight. And then I want to be I'm going to be in the UFC, I think, this year. And I'm going to start climbing the UFC quickly. I don't want to be another fighter that just goes into the UFC and is slowly built up. I want to get through it quite quick. Not too quick, obviously. We'll see what happens, but definitely UFC, and definitely looking at becoming a world champion and nothing else really. Since I started this sport, I have this feeling inside me that I'm going to make it and become a world champion, and that's what I've been following. And obviously, Cage Warriors is the best route for that. You know, people going to Bellator and things like that is just going to slow them down to get to the UFC. That's what it seems like to me that's happening, because Bellator obviously is like a bit of a competitor to UFC. Obviously, they're not, but they want to keep fighters in Bellator and build the divisions and things like that. Cage Warriors is more they get you kind of they get you the belt. Well, whenever you get the belt, you defend it a couple times, and they send you off to the UFC, or the UFC watches the guys coming up in Cage Warriors and then takes them from there. So yeah, that was always the plan for me, to get through Cage Warriors, get the title, and then go to the UFC.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to touch on a little bit as well, saying about your improvements. What do you put your improvements down to? Is it just natural evolution, where anyone would make normal increments of improvements? But if you would say you recognize your biggest improvement, was it due to a particular experience of a fight? Was it after you fought Kieran Lister? Was it after the Oban situation? You felt that something clicked in place, or was it something that clicked in place with your training? Maybe you changed things up with your training, maybe a change of coach, or an introduction of another coach. Would you put your maturity and your gain of level lately?
Of course, my coaches, but also the fact that I'm true to myself. I watch my fights back very soon after they happen, and I watch it from two stances. I watch it from the critical, where I critique myself, and I watch it from the good. So I can see where I'm improving, but I can also see where, in my eyes, comparing myself to the highest of the highest levels in this game, where I need to improve on. And I don't waste time. I don't win a fight and then get back home and, oh, there I am, world champion. This is what I also see in others as well. They win a fight and they think they are world champions. They think like they made it already. That's not how I go. Obviously I have those moments of, let's say, gratitude. I'm thankful for everything that's happening in my life, because it's been a crazy year, and I believe I've done very well. But I look back very quickly and try to improve immediately. I don't like myself. I don't hype myself up, or I don't believe the hype as such. I'm just focusing on getting better, because at the end of the day, this is just the beginning of my journey of becoming the world champion, the UFC world champion. So I got to keep improving, and when it goes into the fights, it seems like it's obviously working. So I'm happy with that.
A couple of questions in the chats. Have you ever had a fight with your brother, and then he clarifies and says, like a proper dust-up, proper fight?
So, yeah, sometimes inspiring, it got out of hand, I'll tell you that, because not recently, to be honest, but when we were younger, we would inspiring, we would go off a little bit. but I think that's normal between brothers. So we would I remember actually I think it was the Selby brothers, the boxers.
Yes,
they go at it really hard. I think I saw one of the sparring footage, and they were just throwing bombs all the time. So yeah, maybe at the beginning when I was a bit younger, but now we kind of work together even better. Obviously, sometimes we have like hard sparring sessions against each other, but it's all just to improve each other. It's nothing really where anyone loses their cool or anything like that.
Is it helpful to be able to train with your brother, someone who obviously you trust, and you trust their opinion, you trust them to be honest with you as well if there's things which need to be discussed?
Exactly. Like you said, it's that honesty that you need, really. It's oh, excuse me, sorry guys. There's a cat in my house and he's going off at the doors. So obviously, when I having my brother is very good in terms of MMA, because he's honest with me and I'm honest with him. So like I said, where I critique myself or I give myself good props, he does the same for me and I do the same for him. So if there is no lying here, it's just literally straight up, oh, you did this shit, we need to work on this. And it's two brains. It's two brains. So it's straight away we try to pick up on some good things, and there's no running away from it. Because we're just trying to get better and we're trying to make each other better.
Yeah, and I think you need that as well. Like in anything you do, if anything, like anything which you're trying to improve at or grow or whatever it may be in life, you need people who are going to tell you the truth and going to be honest with you, both positively and negatively. Because how many times do we see people who've got to like a pretty high level, but then they get surrounded by people who just tell them yes and you're doing great and all this kind of stuff. They haven't got people around them who are going to tell them when they've messed up or when they're not doing, they're not working hard enough. And I think that's vital. Like for me, I got my wife. She's happy to tell me when I do something wrong or I'm not doing things correctly. So there we go.
This is the thing that you can learn through history of the fight game and boxing and MMA. I read books like even Mike Tyson's book, Sugar Ray Leonard, and people like that. It seems like the story keeps repeating itself. People get to the top and then they have these yes men and they wave them and they hype them up all the time, and then they start losing and all those people disappear. Yeah. And they were never honest about let's say them doing things that they shouldn't have been. But that's just the way it is. You just got to try to learn from previous fighters, because basically their stories are right there in your face, really. If you look for them, you can find them, and you got to learn from that rather than ignore it.
Yeah, 100%. It's something which Paddy spoke about, Danny, wasn't it? That like when everyone thought he should go to the UFC the first time around, he when he looks back at that time, he kind of felt like he was surrounded by some people who, were kind of maybe not the right types of people and not doing him any favors. And then when he decided not to go to the UFC, a lot of those people kind of faded away because they were on the train for him to go and do what he's doing now. And because he chose not to, they kind of disappeared. And I think that's what I'd like to see in fighters like Michael, fighters like Paddy. These young guys coming up now, they're not stupid. Like they're not just good, at fighting and the physical side of it and the training side of it, but they're also quite switched on, and they're also, like Michael just said there, looking at other fighters, not just from MMA, from boxing, from wherever it may be, other sports. Look at the mistakes that other people make and learn from them so you don't make those same mistakes. And I mean, we're talking about like people who get success and then things go a bit skew. If there's one obvious thing and obvious guy in MMA at the moment who's, he's in the news on a daily basis, isn't he? At the end of the day, like Conor McGregor, I think I would argue that every British and Irish or every MMA fan can look back at his run to when he won the titles as one of those kind of great periods. Like if you go back and watch those fights, it's really like fascinating, exciting, even to rewatch them as you see his rise through the ranks, and particularly at the start when he leaves Cage Warriors and goes into the UFC, and you look back with hindsight and he didn't have a pot to piss in, he didn't have no money, his missus was supporting him, he was sleeping at the gym and all these things, and then you see this meteoric rise. But then he's come to a point now where even his most staunch fans are kind of like, I don't know, they're almost at a loss. They want him to almost shut up and just fight instead of constantly either being in trouble or spouting off stuff. Is that because he's got the wrong people around him, Danny? Or is that because he's got so much money he just doesn't care?
Yeah, I don't know. He kind of like went off the rails, didn't he? I don't know. It's so hard to say. Is it people around him that, helped him along to go down this darker path? I don't know. I think it was just down to him. He come into the money. He's obviously got a very brash personality. I don't think a lot of what you see is for show. I just think he is how you see him. I just think he's just a very brash, wild character. And I think when you get that kind of money and that kind of attention and that sense of invincibility, that personality gets expressed even more. And, we saw some ugly sides to it, unfortunately. I would still never change the process of his rise. I think it was epic, and I think it gives a lot of people hope. I think financially it changed many other fighters' lives for the permanent good. him coming on the scene.
He doesn't get enough credit for that, I don't think. That he changed the game for other fighters.
Probably not so. But do I agree with all his antics?
Yeah,
absolutely not. His antics are not something of my taste. But does that make me look down on his previous performances? No, it doesn't. He absolutely did things that people thought he couldn't do time and time again. But yeah, he has kind of fallen off, from a great height, his greatness, unfortunately. But everyone has their time. I think when you're a sharpshooter striker, someone like himself that don't really have that wrestling pedigree, I just think once your timing either goes or you get found out stylistically, I think one of the problems his fighting system is that he doesn't have a gas tank, and I think you could just strategize for it. Predominantly he's going to be fighting over 5 rounds, and you can just strategize to beat this guy. There's no secrets to where he's weak. But you wouldn't change it. He's in the news for good or for bad, but we all tune in and we all like to read and hear about what he's up to. And
if there was one guy who you thought, and sorry, going back to what you said about what you were saying about like whether it was or what I asked about the money or the team or the people around him, like predominantly he seems to have the same people around him that he did on his rise. We all I've got so much respect for John Kavanagh, both as a fighter, as a coach, as a man. I think he's on my list of people who I want to interview, right up there with some of the biggest names in the world, just because of everything about him. I find him a really fascinating character. But I just think it's once you get a point where you just get that 100 million for one fight, and it's not even the fight in the sport that you've been made famous for, it's got to be difficult to motivate yourself to get up at 5 a.m. or whatever and go for a run and get punched in the face every day. It's human nature for that to be lost a little bit. But I also would say if there was one fighter who was going to make a little bit of a comeback from where he is now, if you had to bet on one fighter doing it, I would probably put my money on him being the one, because he's got that kind of stubbornness about him and that attitude about him that he wants to kind of shove it in people's face. And I think that now the only way he can do that is by coming back and winning fights and winning titles, because everyone's kind of had their fill of him talking and had their fill of the antics. So if he doesn't come back and win fights, I think a lot of people are kind of over it, if that makes sense. How do you feel about it, Michael, as a current fighter who's on their rise? Where do you see Conor McGregor?
People can say whatever, can hate on Conor McGregor all they want, but he has changed the game for everyone. Even the fighters should thank him, really, because everyone's money's gone up. Obviously, Conor McGregor, this is the thing that he had this quote. I'm not going to quote him, because I can't remember exactly, but he said that he's prepared to lose his mind for his art. And looking at it now, he said that when his family is rich and when his girlfriend has a different car for every day of the week, because the quote goes like that. It seems to me like that's exactly what happened. He's reached that ultimate level, exactly what he set out to do, and he's just gone mad now. Like, he's literally a madman. And in terms of his team, he's surrounded by exactly the same people, but it seems like he runs his own camp. And that's, I don't know if that can be a downfall of someone, because you need people in your camp, like not necessarily running it for you, but then you need honest people in there. And you need young, hungry guys coming after you in training. Yeah, this is exactly what I kind of looked at when I saw Conor McGregor sparring and things like that. I remember him sparring back in the day. I was watching his footage and stuff. There was people coming at him. He was going back at them. Now it seems like, I reckon some people, when they go to spar Conor McGregor and something, they have this feeling of that this guy is this invincible guy, the superstar that can't be hurt, and they don't put it on him. And maybe that's why he's starting to fall behind in the game, really, because, and also going out for a couple of years or a year to do boxing is gonna, as much as it's going to improve your hands, the MMA game is so different in terms of distance and things like that. That's why when you came back, it seems like the MMA game moved forward. Within that year, the calf kicks became very like one of the newest weapons to use, and it seems like Conor McGregor was maybe slightly ignorant to them, or someone didn't point them out to him or something like that. Someone should have been there in this camp going, wait, there's new stuff going on. We need to be watching out for certain things, and he didn't. So, and then in that second fight against Dustin Poirier, it's like he kind of focused on. He said, "Okay, Dustin, you're gonna kick me as hard as you can. Now I'm gonna kick you." And then he broke his leg in the camp, or he had the damaged leg in his camp and broken in the fight. So it seems that like you said, maybe the people around him are not being truthful to him. But how can they be? Because, well, they should be, but obviously this is a person who pays him a lot of money. Let's say his coach or some other coach comes up to him and goes, "Okay, Conor, this round was shit. You did shit in this round." And Conor goes, "Shut the fuck up. I'm paying you." And the guy will go, "Okay, sorry," and move away, because otherwise he won't get paid or something like that. And when Conor McGregor, he's reached so much money that he probably pays these coaches quite a lot and things like that. He needs really honest people. And I think John Kavanagh, I think he is honest with him. Probably he's the man, really. But something is definitely not going right there, and I'm not sure what's happening in his personal life, because I just keep saying on Instagram that he's posting his whiskey and beers and all sorts of things like that. So I don't know. But Conor McGregor for me is an inspiration in what he done in this sport. And I think he's an OG, to be honest. I think he's one of the greatest. First person to have 2 titles in 2 different weight classes. I think he's a great. And also, I think Conor McGregor at featherweight was the best. He was the best because he did have the gas tank at featherweight. He had it. Yeah. And the movement was his fight against Marcus Brimage. I always go back to watch, because those uppercuts and the angles he was using, it's like watching art. The guy is just an artist on his feet. It's just very good to watch. But it seems like he did exactly as well. I remember when there was that press conference and Cowboy Cerrone was saying things to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, you lightweights are stuck in mud." But and then Conor McGregor goes up to lightweight, and this footwork is way slower. And it's like, come on, Yeah,
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah. I think as well, going up the weights didn't help him. I think it allows you, if you're, he was a big solid featherweight, but once you start to feel the comfort of not having to cut as much weight, I just think it's an easier way out. And you've got to think, what's people's incentives to fight? I think his was the money a lot of the case, and for many fighters. And I think once they get it, that can lose their desire to push to fight where they should fight. And I'm talking about weight divisions here. And then he ended up fighting up at 160 pounds, and it was crazy, really. I mean, the guy's 5'9", not necessarily the tallest guy, really. Once you start thinking of some of the size of some of the lightweights out there. I just think it took away from his skill set that he was a devastating, quite a long range fighter at featherweight, and just going up that extra weight, they can take his power more, and they're a little bit more out of reach when he's facing someone that's a little taller and so on and so forth. I don't know. And I think you're right as well. I definitely feel that he fell behind on tempo of his increments of improvement, or his ability to stay on top of the game when he focused on the boxing. I think when he focused on the boxing, then went back to the MMA, I just think he was already a tempo behind the evolution. Such as you pointed out, these calf kicks have really become fashionable. There was just something behind with everything that he was doing. Who knows what's for the future? I'd love to see him fight again. I'd love to see him be successful again. Although, really in those lightweight divisions, once you start hitting that sort of mid-30s, I don't know how many fights he's really got in him anymore to actually make a viable push for any kind of title again. But I'd love to see him have successes again. I'd love to see whether it's possible for him to fight down at featherweight. I don't know, because as we all know, as we get older, you get bigger. I don't know whether that's possible, but it would be a dream if he could get back down and we see him as he was when he was coming up through the ranks.
Yeah.
I will hold that wish up until the day he actually says his retirement. But who knows what's in store for him. But all I know is every time he does fight, everyone watches.
And never in my life I will bet against Conor McGregor. I'll tell you that.
Can't.
Never. Even if he fights Dustin Poirier now, I'm saying he's going to win. He fights Oliveira, I'm saying he's going to win. Although, obviously, now I'm weighing up the options a bit more. But there's no way I would ever put money on McGregor losing, because he can do some incredible things. He's an incredible fighter, and he's changed the game. So I'm a big fan of his, to be honest. I'm a big fan of his. Obviously, the things that are happening with him now are a bit crazy, but I wish him all the best. I want him to come back as well. I want to, when Conor McGregor fights, it's an occasion, Everyone sits down and watches him fight.
Yeah.
That's incredible. In MMA as well. In MMA, he brought the sport up so high now. Everyone needs to just give him his credit, because he really deserves it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, interestingly, he's been in the news this week without being in the news. So, obviously, he's been talking himself, as he always does, about who he could potentially fight when he comes back. And one of the targets has been Charles Oliveira, obviously for the lightweight title, with a lot of people's first reaction being, you can't just come back and jump to that. You haven't won, blah, blah, blah. So I think his plan was, off the top of my head, was beat Poirier and then go on to the title. However, this week then, Henry Cejudo has announced he wants to get back into the fighting game. He's had a break. He's got married. He's had a kid. He's now had a rest and he wants to fight. Dana White basically said, don't be silly. He can't just come back and jump the queue and have a title shot against Volkanovski, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, you could see the kind of hypocrisy that's, we've seen it how many times before, where George St. Pierre was out for however many years it was, came back, fought for the title against Michael Bisping. And there's loads over the years who've been out and come back into a title shot straight away. You could argue it's because, they hold a big name or legendary status, but ultimately, Henry Cejudo was a 2-weight champion. He absolutely starched, TJ Dillashaw. He left on top. He's had a break. He wants to come back. Do you think he should be able to just slot into that title picture, Danny? Or do you think he has to take a fight with somebody else, at least one, maybe a couple?
I just think because his status was so high, I think, that is someone that could probably get away with just dropping straight in. I don't think there'd be too much complaint, to be honest, because he was so utterly dominant. And like you pointed out, a 2-weight champion. I think it's absolutely viable that he could come and drop straight in.
That featherweight division is it's not short of a name or two, is it? It's not. But then Volkanovski kind of cleared it out enough that someone like a Cejudo can just come in and basically demand a title shot, or is there other contenders there who maybe deserve a shot before him? I'm sure there's many, like Michael said at the start of the show, if Cage Warriors go and make someone else versus Joe McColgan, he's going to be a bit frustrated because he's cleared out the division and then someone else is going to get that title shot. So, I'm going to have a look at the featherweight division now. But, Michael, do you see a problem with Cejudo coming in and getting that shot at Volkanovski if that's the way they decide to go?
For me, as a fan, I think that fight makes a lot of sense, and I think Henry Cejudo needs to keep pushing for it, because that's one of the few fights he stands a chance of winning at featherweight because of the physical attributes of others. Yes. I think he would struggle with someone like Max Holloway. Because of Henry Cejudo is a small guy.
Tiny.
Small flyweight, isn't he?
He's just like a flyweight is a small guy. Like some bantamweights are quite small as well. So if you put him against Volkanovski, who obviously I know it has this the history of being like 200 pounds or whatever, he's 5'6". He's not a huge featherweight or tall featherweight. He might be a big guy, but he's not a tall featherweight. So the physical attributes can be countered or can be matched with Henry Cejudo. But with someone like Max Holloway or things like that, I don't think that's going to be as good for Henry. Although he's a very skilled fighter, so you never know. He might take all of them out, to be honest. But going back to the point of can he just drop in there? In my point of view, yes, but he hasn't fought in a while, and we cannot compare him star-wise to Conor McGregor, because even if Conor McGregor now jumps and fights Oliveira, some of us would go, hey, that's a bit strange. But for how long? We'd be like, hey, I love this fight. No one would really be like, yeah, Conor McGregor. It's like some people might criticize it, but we still want Conor McGregor fighting Oliveira, yeah. At the end of the day, because stylistically, Conor McGregor has that one-punch knockout. You never know. I like Oliveira stands up front of people and tries to put pressure on them. You never know if he would get cracked by that left hand. So there's questions to be answered like that. Henry Cejudo, though, he's kind of built up this different kind of star in terms of like marketing, where he's going into the cringe thing. I don't think he has as much star power, obviously, as Conor McGregor to be able to jump the line. But I do think he should. I think that's a great fight for the UFC to make as well. I think that fight sells very well. Stylistically, it's very good. I think Henry Cejudo has a good chance of beating Volkanovski, but Volkanovski is very good as well. So I definitely watch that one.
Yeah, I still want to see that Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. That's the fight I'd like to see. But like, I'm just looking at this featherweight division, right? And you've got Arnold Allen ranked at number 7, who's absolutely busting to fight. Obviously, we spoke to him a few weeks back, and like he's busting to fight. He's also on I think a 3-fight win streak. So he's ranked 7th. He wants a big fight. You've got Josh Emmett. You've got Kelvin Kattar, super impressive last night. You've got Yair Rodriguez, obviously had an injury, and I think that caused this fight to be off. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega. I don't see stylistically. I kind of agree with you, Michael. I don't know whether Henry Cejudo beats a lot of those guys. Look, Henry Cejudo is so talented. He's such a good all-round fighter. But like even Arnold Allen, who's the lowest ranked out of those names I've just mentioned, I could see Arnold causing Henry quite a few issues stylistically. So from that point of view, I feel like he shouldn't get the title shot. I feel like he should have to probably fight at least one of those top 7 featherweights before he gets that title shot, because a lot of those guys are waiting for their go. So, Max Holloway deserves another go at the title because of the run he's on. Danny, where do you stand with regards to the other fighters within that top 7?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few people that have good arguments to step up. Yeah, not there are. Names, but Volkanovski, he's sort of dealt with them all at some point. So it does leave it open. This is why I think someone like Cejudo could drop straight in, because he has pretty much cleared out the division. He's beat Holloway twice. So, where do we go with that? I mean, I'd love to see it a third time, and you can never write Holloway off. I think he's Holloway, though, isn't it? He's absolutely in the peak and the prime of his life, and I think he will stay that way for foreseeable future. But yeah, right now that's sort of like just been a story that's run by twice, and it can sit in the wings while someone like Cejudo comes and drops in. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing this too much of from a fan's perspective. I just think it'll be great. I mean, look, Cejudo did incredible things, but to come in at featherweight and possibly take that crown as well, that would be quite something, wouldn't it? I mean, he'd be doing something that's never been done before. The only reason why I think it might not happen is because you have to think about how Dana White thinks and works this business. Is he going to allow someone to come in, sort of just take the belt and then vacate it again?
He's had his fingers burnt with that, hasn't he? Before,
and he's going to want to put conditions on it that he fights and defends it at least 2 times, and so on and so forth. Does Cejudo really want to come in and possibly come and take the belt, but does he really want to? Reignite his career again and stay at the top. I mean, that's a lot of dedication. He knows what it takes, which is probably why he wanted to get out once he reached the top. He sort of like done some great things and he got out at the right time. He did it with the wrestling, didn't he? He done ever so well and then sort of retired and then changed his career over to MMA at a really young age, considering the success he was having at wrestling. But, this is someone that makes normally strong, assertive decisions and sticks by them, which is quite rarely seen. We see fighters dip in and out of the fight game to a point where, perhaps they should have stayed away. But, is that going to be the case with it? I just don't know. But, I just don't know whether Dana White will do it. I don't know whether he'll run it by.
I don't think he will. But I will say, as a fan, if he was going to say, you've got to fight X and Y before you can have a title shot, so you've got to show that you can beat these top featherweights to get a title shot. You've got Bryce Mitchell at 11. Now that is a fight I would like to see. Bryce Mitchell versus Henry Cejudo at featherweight. And even, you've got that UFC London card in March. Arnold Allen versus Henry Cejudo in London is a massive fight.
I heard the rumor that Arnold is looking at fighting Hooker.
Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, I read something about that. That'd be an amazing fight. Yeah,
I think Arnold Allen has been under the radar, to be honest, for quite a bit. I think he's
absolutely
a fighter as well. I think he can get in there and mix it up. I don't know. This is the thing. We'll never know if Henry Cejudo was to come back in and then fight some of those guys. I don't know how well they'd be able to handle his wrestling. That's the thing. His wrestling is just another level. And some of these guys that you mentioned, I think that Miles, he's like a grappler himself. I just wonder if he would get completely out-wrestled by him. Because at the end of the day, he's an Olympic level wrestler, and he has managed to transfer that over to MMA. I mean, his fight against Demetrius Johnson, he was hitting inside trips. Who do you see doing that? Like maybe Yoel. Also, these top level wrestlers. So we can take into account physical attributes, but wrestling is like at that level his level is so good that these guys might just be shooting into thin air if they want to take him down. And his boxing, he was a Golden Glove champion as well. His hands are very good. The thing for me is how quickly can he close the distance and things like that because of the reach advantage and the height. It's an interesting one, and this is the one that we would find out very quickly if Henry Cejudo was to come back and fight one of those top 10 guys. We would know within the first minute whether he will be the champion or not, I think.
I was down at Brad Pickett's gym. He's just had a newly done up gym that we went down to, and we had Jordan sparring some of the guys down there, and we got talking about when he fought Demetrius Johnson. And Demetrius Johnson is pretty damn good wrestler. I think we could all say that he definitely showed his pedigree of wrestling capabilities over the years and continues to do so in one championships. But do you remember when he fought Brad Pickett? Now, Brad Pickett, I'm sure, will hold his hands up saying, look, on paper, he's nowhere near as a gifted wrestler as someone like Demetrius Johnson, but he constantly took Demetrius Johnson down in his fight. And that's because there was no lighter weight divisions for Demetrius to fight in at the time. He was largely, overscaled by size. By Brad, even though Brad's not particularly a big guy himself, he definitely had thickness and density in his body over Mighty Mouse, and he did take him down on more than one occasion. And you've got to wonder whether size would really come into it.
Same thing happened when he. Sorry for interrupting you. Same thing happened when he fought Dominic Cruz. But continue.
No, but this is just an interesting thing, and it makes you just curious. Could that happen? Again from sort of like that experience to go by. I just don't know. It'd be so interesting, and again, I reiterate from a fan's perspective, it'll be so exciting. So exciting to see him come back in and on a whole new weight division as well.
Yes,
come on, Dana White.
Styles make fights. Styles make fights. That's the famous saying, isn't it? Right, Michael. Just before we let it go, there's a question in the chat. Where was it? from the UFC lightweight division, who would you like to fight?
My kind of dream matchup, thinking about it, would be Justin Gaethje. Because in styles, I think we'd meet in the middle. It would be a hell of a scrap. It would be like I know that it would be a war. So if I was to choose, like as a fan, let's say, I would say that me versus Gaethje would be the best, really.
I like it. So I'm going to ask you for a prediction from next week's Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane heavyweight title bout. There's a lot of animosity between these two men. They are very, very big men. They do not like each other. Michael, how do you see that fight going, and who do you think is going to become victorious?
I don't know. I think the kind of MMA media are kind of leaning towards not Ngannou, but Cyril Gane. Sorry, I couldn't pronounce his name properly, but I think they're leaning towards him because of the sparring footage or something like that. But I mean, you cannot count Ngannou out, really, because his power is just crazy. He might just touch him and it might be over. But that kickboxing style, kind of hopping up and down as a heavyweight, I think is very dangerous. That Gane has. And I just wonder if he will be able, because he sparred him as well before and he knows his style, whether he'll be able to avoid the power and then maybe get a decision or maybe finish him in like the third round or something. It's a very hard one for me, but I'm going to go with Ngannou. I think he might knock him out.
Yeah, I think that's what will happen too. My thing with Ngannou is since he lost that first time, he has improved. So he lost to Derek Lewis, didn't he? And since he lost to Derek Lewis, I feel that every single fight he's got better. He fought Curtis Blades, knocked him out in 45 seconds, and he looked like a different animal mentally. He looked comfortable in his own skin. Then he finished Cain Velasquez in under 30 seconds. Dos Santos in under a minute and a half. They're not long fights, but they're not long fights for a reason. Rosen struck 20 seconds, and then obviously beat Stipe in the second round. Like, he stopped some big names.
Yeah.
But I just think compared to before those losses, he looks comfortable in his own skin. You mentioned at the start, Danny, about Michael looking so loose in his last two fights, so comfortable in there. And when a fighter is comfortable, I always feel is when they're capable of doing their best work. And when you look at Ngannou, he's relatively young in an MMA, like in terms of the amounts of miles on his body and the fights that he's had. And like, yes, there's not, they're the same height, but from a power point of view, if Ngannou nails you properly, you ain't getting up for a couple of days. And I just think he's improved so much over that time. I see him being victorious, but I'm interested in what you think, Danny.
I'm going to go Cyril. I think Cyril Gane. Yeah, I think Cyril Gane's going to do it because he knows that he's got power. He knows that that's pretty much the way for him to win. He has 5 rounds to stay elusive and wear this guy down. One thing that goes against Ngannou is his cardio. He's not going to be able to coast through 5 rounds as comfortable as Ngannou is. And if he's got any kind of strategy capabilities in his camp and himself as a person, he will be playing it elusive for the first 2 rounds and start his leg work and start his graft in rounds 3, 4, and 5. And I think you will see a stoppage late in round 4 or early in round 5. That's what I think will happen. But I do agree with the pair of you that his power is, just absolutely incredible. And of course, there's a risk of him putting him away. But I think Gane knows that, and I think he'll avoid that at all costs. You've got to think about his style. His style is fairly elusive. He's been in there with some pretty devastating strikers, and tall, rangy strikers, and he barely got hit. So I think he's got the savvy. I think he's got the range skills to stay out of trouble and work this as a long haul strategy. But if he makes a rush of it and maybe let all this hype get the better of him and maybe let this hatred for each other, if they really do, and he goes in there trying to knock him out, he could end up getting himself knocked out. But I just don't think he'll play that way. I think he'll play for the long haul. If he don't, he should.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you say. Like you know, everything which you sort of say there, I do agree with. I just I think also sometimes people forget. Ngannou's won, I think 4, maybe 5 fights via submission as well. I think that's right. I'm going to double check now. Like he has got. It's not just like one of those old style heavyweights where, you know, they either knock you out or they just gas out and they're done. Like he has got other attributes to his game, but I would tend to agree with you. Like Cyril Gagnier's got much more all-round skills to his game, and if you're looking at one of those two guys to last out 5 rounds comfortably, then you would probably go with Cyril Gagnier. One thing's for sure, I think it's going to be. I hope it's going to be a tasty one. I hope it doesn't end up with them just kind of circling each other for 5 games, 5 rounds, and then they hug every now and again. They get kind of, and it's just like that. I hope it's not like that, because I think it has potential to be a really good heavyweight fight, which we sometimes get robbed of.
Like we did with Ngannou and Lewis. I mean, that was
the
best fight.
Such a shame, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then you have. Yeah, we'll never know. We might see them just literally circling away from each other, because I bet Gan actually hits very hard too.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. They're both big guys. So
Ngannou will know that. So I just this is where the mentality will come in again, because I think that's what stopped Ngannou in that Lewis fight. It was his, like, he didn't want to get knocked out so bad that he wouldn't engage at all. So now that these guys know each other. The fight could be very close. It could go either way because of how these guys know each other, and it might be a boring fight as well. I hope not. I hope it's crazy, because I'm looking forward to it. But
this is a really hard fight to predict, both by who might win it and also what kind of style of match we'll see. I think it's very, very hard to predict.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you finding the time to speak to us. Hope you'll come back later in the year. And obviously, when you've got a fight and stuff sorted, you're more than welcome to come and have a chat. And we'll see how you go. But until then, I appreciate your time, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, great talking with you, Michael.
Have a great night.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, so we got Ben joining us in just a moment. But just as I bring him in, excuse me, good frog in my throat. Support for the Danny Batten Fight Show and A.C.E Podcast Nation is brought to you by Manscaped. Exciting news across from our friends at Manscaped, because just launched is their 4th generation performance package. The ultimate package includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right. That's the 4.0. Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming, have done it again to make your grooming next level. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the new performance package by going to manscaped.com. You 20% off and free shipping, and all you've got to do is use the code ACE Nation, and that's 20% off, free shipping. The performance package by Manscaped is well worth the wait. Inside the package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, the Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag known as the Shed to hold all your goodies. They sent myself, Danny, and Rodri this performance package, and it was very, very good. I got to say, I've used all of the products, and I very, very impressed, I have to say. Well worth the money, and they are equipment of the highest order. Danny, they're not just hype, mate, like legitimately top quality equipment, wasn't it?
Yeah. You know, a lot of people, you know, when they're getting sponsored or whatever, we'll just talk about it and just say positive things for the sake of saying positive things. But yeah, it was a surprise, and other people that have purchased it, that are close to me, have also been quite stunned at the effectiveness of it. Yeah, it's one of those things you just got to try it to believe it. And also, you know, not only I got a pair of those boxers. My son's since invested in some of the boxers. They are really quite something of comfort. You've just got to put them on to try them. Honestly, once you've gone down that route for boxers, you won't be changing back to your Tesco ones. You just won't do it. Very, very comfortable.
Yeah, and I think they're good for if you do training, whether it's jogging, MMA, boxing, whatever it may be. They're really good for that. They got the anti-chafing materials and technology within the boxes.
It works. It really does work.
Quality, yeah. I was like I say, surprised. I've tried a few different like body hair trimmers and beard trimmers and stuff like that over the years, and this is the one that I've kind of got. I've used it, and I'm like, right, I'm not going to use any others because this is that good. And like I've said before, I get offered a lot of different sponsorship deals, brand deals, promote this product, promote that product. What I won't do is I won't promote something which I don't use myself. I'm not just going to say I use something. Like I use it, I'll promote it. And this is spot on. And we'll talk about another thing later on, but the manscaped.com, use the code ACE Nation. You get not only 20% off your order, but you also get free shipping. We thank them for supporting the channel and the show. But with no further ado, we've left him waiting for 3 whole minutes. We were delighted to be joined by none other than Mr. Ben Doughty. How are you, my friend? Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I'm good. Hope you guys are okay.
Here you are, Ben.
Yes, mate. All good, all good. It's been an interesting week again on the boxing front. Some interesting news bits actually this week. Some fights moved and stuff like that. But the news bit which really caught my eye straight away was I saw you post on your Facebook that a potential deal between Dazn and BT Sport. Like, what can you tell us about that in terms of a deal and the implications of it as well?
Well, it's been rumoured for a while that Dazn were looking to acquire BT Sport, and the most recent news is that they're very close to a deal, and that will be signed and sealed pretty soon. To be honest with you, I think it has more, because obviously boxing fans, their natural reaction is, oh, well, where does that leave Frank Warren? Who's been promoting on his shows have been aired on BT Sport for a while now, both the regular shows and his pay-per-view shows. But to be honest, I think the bigger picture, as far as DAZN are concerned, across the global sporting picture, is they're interested in the access, the control they get over the market share they'll get of Premier League football. I think that's a big deal to them for BT Sport, which is something. I mean, I'm not a big football fan, so I don't know how much football and of the big games are on BT Sport, but I believe a lot of them are. And I think also the UFC and the MMA is another aspect of it as well, Danny. So this is part of the DAZN master plan, the whole global takeover bid by the streaming giant. And I think, from a boxing point of view, it is interesting for us to discuss where it leaves Frank Warren and that kind of natural, rivalry with Matchroom. But I think as far as the DAZN executives and decision makers are concerned, they're looking at a much bigger picture than just boxing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like all those things you mentioned, they're a massive thing. I think for one company to acquire all within one deal. So, like for instance, with Amazon, they have a certain amount of Premier League games, but they only have a few, and it's like in December. They only have them in December, whereas BT has 2-3 games a week, plus they have championship games, League One games. They have all the UFC shows, which you normally, if you're in America, you have to pay for a lot of them via pay-per-view. I know some UFC shows now you have to pay for through box office, but for a lot of years, BT was just showing those on the main channel. There's also other aspects. BT recently signed a massive deal with the WWE. Obviously, used to be WWF, which is a massive commodity. So, like getting all of those things bundled in one deal. Yes, of course, they're going to pay a pretty penny, but it's a lot of content.
Wrestling was the other thing I forgot to mention. You're quite right to lump the WWE into that whole equation. And I think that's the thing, they were never going to achieve what they needed to achieve and to recoup the huge amount of investment that's gone into the streaming app without much more than boxing. Because I think as big as boxing seems to the likes of myself and even to you gentlemen, we've got to realise it's still, as far as some people are concerned, it's a kind of a niche sport, globally in terms of things that people are interested in and aware of, So it's definitely they're definitely looking at the bigger picture there. But since I'm a boxing pundit, and since you get me on, to talk about that, I think the most interesting aspect from the boxing point of view is where does it leave Frank Warren? Because I was thinking, does it necessarily preclude Frank Warren from promoting on BT Sport and continuing to have shows, or could that happily coexist with? I mean, I know Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, I know he's in bed with Dazn, because the thing with Eddie, he's left Sky for boxing, right? But he hasn't left Matchroom as a company, a sports promotional company, have not left Sky, have they? They've still got plenty of sports on Sky, right? The darts and
they got loads on.
Do you know what I mean? So they haven't
Snooker.
left Sky. Yeah, snooker's massive, right? And it all started with snooker. That was what Matchroom. That's why it's called Matchroom, and that was Barry Hearn's initial foray, as an entrepreneur. But so what I'm wondering is I mean, that's not entirely relevant to talk about Dazn and BT Sport. I'm just trying to look at the bigger picture and the fact that Sky haven't departed. Sorry, Matchroom haven't departed from Sky per se, but they've just gone with Dazn in the boxing direction. Can Frank Warren still have shows on BT Sport even if DAZN acquires it? Does it automatically mean he's out on his ear? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what you might think about it.
I think stranger things have happened. I think I don't think it necessarily would be you're out on your ear, you got no chance. But it obviously makes it a little bit more tricky, if nothing else. But I'd be interested. Yeah. It would be a very interesting kind of thing to watch develop. Could they work together? Would they be happy to sort of leave Frank Warren to continue basically doing what he's doing? And it also depends on what DAZN's plans are. Like, so if they want to make it, do they just want to rebrand BT Sport as DAZN on Sky or on satellite TV and cable TV, or would they want to make it like it is in America? I believe it's like it's a bit effectively an app like Netflix and the rest of them.
Yeah.
It depends. Because
Warren could go back to Sky, of course. Warren could go back to Sky. There's nothing.
Of course, yeah.
Sky need fighters and shows and promoters at the minute. They're trying to build this next generation thing, and they're not doing a bad job, to be fair. Sky, since the big exodus of Matchroom fighters. But I'm pretty sure Sky would probably welcome Frank Warren back into the fold in 2022 simply because there was a big drain when Eddie moved over to the app,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you say, like in a lot of ways, I think Sky Sports, the push they've made with kind of trying to build younger fighters, new different pundits, etc. Yes, part of it was forced, but they're still putting an effort into doing so. And Frank Warren is an obvious name everybody within boxing knows, and would give that a bit of a lift and even more, credibility and things like that. I got to be honest, I'm not 100% familiar with what DAZN is in America. As far as I'm aware, it's effectively, a Netflix for sport, basically. You have all sorts of different.
Which is what I understand it to be here. I mean, although no, in fact, here I know they have football. They do have football. They haven't had it previously, I believe, because I know in Britain, if you subscribe to the DAZN, which I do and have done for a while, when you get that kind of idents, kind of cameo, highlight reel thing that happens before you decide what you want to watch, whether you want to watch something live or something that's already on there as content. It does have football in the kind of intro reel, so I believe they have screened football previously before this, this new development. And there is a thing whereby when Anthony Joshua, and the same thing was when Kavanagh fought Billy Joe, but when Anthony Joshua was still tied into Sky for his last couple of fights, but Eddie had already made the deal with DAZN and switched his garden party shows over, for instance. You couldn't watch those fights on normal DAZN if you lived in the country. If you lived in Britain, you had to buy it on pay-per-view. That was the same thing. You couldn't just get Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo Alvarez. I don't believe it was free on DAZN in this country. I'd have to refresh my memory on that, but I know certain fights which were on the channel were not viewable in the UK if there was a hot property like Anthony Joshua fight. Joshua Pulev, certainly you had to pay for it. You couldn't just get it by having DAZN, which started at $1.99. Of course, that was the initial introduction kind of price. It's gone up to $7.99 several months ago, some point last year. A lot of people bailed out straight away because they thought $1.99 was fine, but they didn't want to pay $7.99. But obviously, enough people stayed. That was obviously part of the whole kind of strategy. A lot of the question that people have been asking on my page since the first price increase was, where will it end? Pretty soon it'll be 20 quid a month and all the rest of it, which I don't know. But it is interesting, this new development. I guess we will have to wait and see when they actually finalise it. But it sounds like it is going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting because, funny enough, it's funny that you mentioned about the UK show. So basically some content is geo-locked, which means in America it's available as part of the app, but in this country it's on pay-per-view, etc., and it can be different wherever you are. One of the advantages, or one way to get around that, is if you use what is called a VPN. Danny, do you know what a VPN is?
Oh, no, yeah, sort of.
Right then. So basically,
I've used the one before.
With ExpressVPN, you can download an app and you can change the country which you're in, and you can unlock geo. You both know where this is going. You can unlock geo content, and I am happy to say that if you're a fan or a watcher of Ace Podcast Nation, if you go to expressvpn.com/Ace Nation Army, you can get various discounts and deals off ExpressVPN, and you can unlock geo-locked content, so you can watch Premier League football on DAZN. You can watch what else do they have in America? So you can watch some of the fights. You can also watch the American version of Netflix, things like that. And if you sign up for the year-long one, you get 3 months free. There we go. And that's expressed it. Gone.
Some people stream the whole damn lot of it, of course, don't they? Some people stream everything. You can. I know from experience that you can stream pretty much any big fight. You might have to mess around with it, and you may have some disappointments, and you may have some buffering, or you may have to go to another link sometimes.
Cool,
but when Fury Wilder 3, for instance, I was in a position, I forget, because I don't have BT Sports, so I stream that. I don't know. I'm still not sure quite how illegal it is and how advisable it is to admit this on some massively popular platform like yours. But I stream that one, and obviously every time there's a big fight, I get inundated with messages, and people are like posting on the wall saying, "Anybody got streams tonight?" It's the same. And a lot of them do work, and they will work eventually. Like I say, you might have to be a bit artful, you might have to switch sometimes, but you'll get there if you want to. Now, I don't mind paying for DAZN.
I think it seems like good value when I just looked at it. Yeah. For what you can get, especially if you're a fan of sport generally. If it's unfortunate because if you go on the American version of the website, which tells you what they get, you get a whole lot more. And such as I mentioned Netflix there. Obviously, I was promoting the VPN, but the US version of Netflix is so much better than the UK one. There's so much more content, and it does make a difference. And if you go on the DAZN in the US website, they get Premier League football. They get I think it's certain things of MMA. You do get more stuff through it. And I think if that stuff was available in the UK version, which potentially this BT deal would mean that it was, suddenly $7.99 or $10.99 even, or just a tenner a month, it's worth it. People pay about that for BT.
If it's sufficiently all-encompassing, I think it's okay. I think what people don't want to do, and I don't want to do it either, is to pay for Sky, to pay for BT Sport, and to pay for DAZN. Do you know what I mean? Because it all ends up. I mean, you could do, but it all adds up, and it's just more and more kind of, it's more kind of draining of that disposable income, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing which can be frustrating with this type of thing is if you pay whatever, it's say £10 a month for DAZN, for instance, and you get all this different content, you get all the fights, and then when a really big fight comes along, suddenly you can watch it through DAZN, but you've got to pay 30 quid for the fight itself.
Well,
and that could be frustrating.
Pay-per-view started in America, and you know what the first one was? The first one ever, where they actually had to pay extra for a fight that was just on the tube, as they called it in America, was Floyd Patterson versus Ingemar Johansson. I believe it was the rematch after Johansson had sensationally knocked Pettersson out in 3 rounds in the first fight, 1961, and the rematch it was like a mail thing. You had to mail $2 to some address, so you cut it out from the paper and sent it off in an envelope, whatever, with $2
Wow.
in it. And then you got it into your home. That was the first home pay fights ever screened, and then from there, obviously, it developed to a point where it became like a mandatory thing. I remember reading American boxing magazines in my teens, and they kept talking about PPV or pay-per-view, and I didn't really know what it was because we'd never had it in England, and we didn't get it in
No.
England till the Sky era. That didn't happen, And even then, when we first got Sky and satellite, and it was called Sky BSB, they didn't have pay-per-view immediately. You just needed to pay for the service, and you got fights like Tyson versus Bruno, the first one in 1989. But obviously, it's evolved from that point in the early 60s in America when they first did it. It didn't really explode or take off immediately, but by the I'm trying to think, the first pay-per-view show on HBO, I think, was Foreman versus Frazier, in 1973, Kingston, Jamaica, and the first one, Showtime, was 1986, John McGarvey versus Marvin Hagler. So they were quite. I mean, Showtime was a newer network anyway, a newer cable station, but they came a lot later doing pay-per-views on HBO. But there was a point when it was only the really special fights, and then it ended up becoming any half-decent fight. And it's same with Sky, under Eddie Hearn's regime, it ended up being non-title fights like Chisora versus Usyk and things like that. It was just and boxing fans are forever moaning about it on my page. He's a thief. He's some kind of made over Essex car salesman, etc., etc. But the thing is, most of them who are hardcore fans, who are in the loop with everything, they also know how to stream it. Everybody talks about IPTV, which gives you absolutely everything. And once again, I'm not sure that's legal. It doesn't sound it, but you pay 30 quid a year to some fella, and then you get everything. I mean, you've probably heard that one too. But what I think is interesting is where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years with all of this, because I suppose streaming is a genuine, home streaming, people streaming it themselves illegally, piracy, is a big, it does have an impact, on the revenue of fighters. I suppose it does make a difference. I remember Barry Jones, your countryman, Simon, and a former world champion and a much loved pundit, was saying, all you lot are like every Saturday saying, where's a stream? Anybody got a stream? He says, you're taking money out of fighters' mouths,
Yeah. And these same people, and look, I'm not criticizing, I've got IPTV myself.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing, because for me, I pay about 70 odd quid for a year, and I get everything, everything possible, everything you could think of, I got it. So that's worth it to me, because I have to watch a lot of stuff to be able to talk about it. If I couldn't, it would cost me a boatload of money every month to buy pay-per-views for various sports. So it is what it is.
I tell you what I use, which I've never paid anything to, is a server called Crackstream. I don't know if you heard of that.
That's good, Danny. Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah.
It was good. It seems to have faltered lately. Crackstream was the one. I remember there was a friend of mine who's a boxing photographer who said, try this, mate. It's really good, Crackstreams. And I remember streaming Canelo versus Kovalev on it, Wilder versus Ortiz too. And it was great. And then I told a few people about it, like you do, and then it seemed to be, the efficiency of it seemed to be worsening. And my theory, and other people's theory, was the more people who find out about this, the worse it will get. Although
I think that's what's happened.
Yes, I think so, because lately the one that seems to work is called Release Sky or Tenor Sky. That seems to be the one, and it seems to have replaced Crackstreams as the one every week. Say, type Crackstreams into to your browser.
So we'll move away from promoting illegal streaming for a little bit, but I mean the point is as well is what I was going to say is the same people like myself who watch some fights through these various streaming platforms and ways are the same people saying all these fighters should be getting paid more for putting their life on the line, etc. But we're not paying for the fights. So
this is the problem. And I suppose it's also like the live gate thing, you know what I mean? I suppose if you're really a fan and you want to support fighters, particularly local fighters, let's say, then you should go out and buy a ticket for the small hall shows as well. But the trouble is, the small hall shows have become so cynical and so non-competitive because of the whole. I've probably spoke about it and waxed lyrical about it on this show before about the whole, A side, B side thing, the ticket sellers versus the journeyman. And if you look at, I mean, see, the other day, this might be something you'd like to touch on as well before my segment's finished. Bob Arum is being sued by Terence Crawford
Yes,
for
I was going
being
to ask you that.
racist. He's suing him on the grounds his revoltingly racist bias is the reason why their business relationship hasn't worked out, and it has essentially impacted negatively on Crawford's career because the man is an old Jewish racist who has not allowed him to prosper, and they're actually looks like they're going to take this to court. But someone was saying, there's a friend of mine who happens to be black who was feeling Crawford's argument, and he was bringing a load of evidence as far as he saw it, which kind of anecdotal evidence which backed up what he was talking about. But he was, and then he started sharing things on my wall in the comment thread about Arum being accused of fixing bouts, and all this, or trying to fix bouts. And I said to him, well, if you want to talk about fixed bouts, you try starting with every small hall promoter in the UK. When there's one guy who's come to lose and another guy's come to win throughout much of the bill, not all of the fights, but you will see a good 80% of them where you can predict the winner just by looking at the program, and you will get guys who. I mean, I literally have been in situations with young fighters having their first or second pro fight, and the guy, their opponent, has almost said to us, "Listen, don't worry about me. I'm not gonna get your rag out. I'm not gonna do anything silly. Just moving around, mate." Because they've had a few fights, some of these journeymen, and they don't want an angry young puncher coming at them, so they're trying to placate him a little bit and say, "Listen, mate, I'm not the one who's trying to ruin your dream. Listen, just let's go nice and easy." You know what I mean? So, so many fights are fixed effectively in that way. Like I say, not all of them. And when you see top class boxing, it's still the finest for me, the finest sporting kind of event that you can see. When you see a fight like Fury Wilder 3, for instance, or so many others. Even recently, Porter versus Crawford. They're great fights, and they're all trying to win with everything they've got. But so much of the building blocks for that industry are disingenuous and kind of basically a sham.
So, Ben, what's kind of a bit of the backstory with Crawford versus Arum then? Like, because it seems to have soured and got quite, quite personal, quite visceral, quite deep, quite quickly. Like, it doesn't seem like that long ago that they were kind of, promoting his fights and whatever else. And all of a sudden, this seems like it's going to court and it's going to get, nasty.
A couple of years ago, Arum seemed to be on board with the Crawford ship, and he was saying that this is another Marvin Hagler. He's that same kind of guy who's not automatically charismatic, bit of a blue-collar hero, but damn can he fight. And it's the fact he's the substance, and he will dominate. That will make. Funny enough, I just see. I got thought was a relevant tweet. I thought it was. It's you.
No, it's me. I just tweeted saying we're talking about it.
It's not a coincidence, yeah. And then suddenly, the last few fights, Arum claims to have lost money on, and he says that that he feels that Crawford doesn't do enough to promote himself outside of his hometown of Nebraska. Sorry, his home state of Nebraska. His hometown is Omaha, Nebraska, where he's massive and huge and loved. But it's quite a parochial thing, and he hasn't transcended into a star across the United States like a mainstream star. Never mind, international star. Now he has all-time great kind of skills and capabilities. I think that much is obvious at this point. But Arum feels that he's not box office and he's not doing enough outside of Nebraska to make himself box office. And he says his demands are unreasonable based on what he draws organically. And he says that we can't keep losing money on Terence Crawford. And he says now if he goes somewhere else, and somewhere like Triller, who've been overpaying a little bit perhaps for some of the things they've done in their short time in the sport, he says then he'd be a fool not to go. That's business. He says all I'm saying is we're at the limit of what we can pay Terence Crawford, and we have hit that, and we have learned that from promoting him. And obviously Crawford was disgruntled with that and felt that Bob wasn't doing enough for him, and perhaps favouring other fighters. And now the race card seems to have reared its head, because somebody said Fury, when he signed with Aaron, and he kind of stayed with Warren, but also signed a deal with Top Rank and Bob Arum. And they were saying that Fury didn't do good numbers against Otto Wallin or Tom Schwartz, his first 2 fights in the States under that new Top Rank deal. But he said, but Aaron was putting all the positive spin on it, like, he's a superstar, he's a mainstream superstar, he's going to be this, he's the biggest thing since Muhammad Ali. When they said he wasn't doing good numbers, I mean, he's done good numbers with Wilder, but not with the essentially non-title fights that Fury engaged in the States as part of that Top Rank deal. Now, what people are saying is, how come he's being totally honest or brutally honest about Crawford and saying, "Oh, we're losing money," but he's prepared to swallow that to Fury and put the positive spin on it. He also, somebody else mentioned Guillermo Rigondeaux, who is a ring genius stylistically, but not the most exciting fella to the casual fan. When he beat Nonito Donaire, the Filipino Flash, who was a big star in the Philippines and in the United States, and was being seen as one of the kind of pound-for-pound top guys, and one of those kind of banner stars to carry the lighter divisions and to carry the torch underneath the featherweight division. When Rigondeaux stood him on his head after only a handful of fights, I think he'd only had 11 or 12 fights at the time, maybe even less, and he totally outclassed Nonito Donaire. But Aaron wasn't happy, and he didn't make any secret of it. And he said, "Now the question now is, how do I market a master boxer?" Which sounds a bit odd, right? If you to the layman, it's like there's a master of the art, and you'll say this is going to be a major problem trying to market him. How do I sell him? And one of my friends at the time said, what he means is, how can I sell a dour little Cuban who doesn't speak English? And obviously because Guillermo Rigondeaux is black, some people said, okay, that's another example. Floyd Mayweather is probably the best example we've got. We want to talk about crossover superstars and promotion and who's doing what and who did it right. Mayweather said he was always held back when he was with Aaron. I mean, he made money with Aaron, sure. But when you look at the meteoric rise Floyd experienced since he left that Bob Arum, he said because he doesn't know how to market a black fighter and he doesn't understand the cultural side of that. And Floyd was actually better off marketing himself, in conjunction with good business people that he trusted as part of his team. But with the money team and, his own promotional outfit, Mayweather basically took over the world, didn't he? And Mayweather, the interesting thing about that, Simon, Danny, Mayweather's not the most interesting fighter unless you know what you're watching. But his whole style and profile and brashness and his kind of materialistic branding, the fact Floyd Money Mayweather, he rebranded himself from Pretty Boy Floyd to Floyd Money Mayweather. And I think he was one of those fighters who really understood social media and became a social media phenomenon. Because Floyd said, if I'd have had social media from the start of my career, you don't even want to know what I would have earned and what I would, the trajectory I would have had. And he was basically saying Bob Arum didn't move him right either, So maybe I'm more inclined to think it's cultural because Bob Arum has obviously worked with black fighters, and made tens of millions for black fighters like Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns. He's worked with other ethnic fighters, Hispanics. Because if you're a racist, is he being accused of being a racist or anti-black? Because he works with plenty of people other than white Jewish fighters. Because the last of the great white Jewish fighters went out in the 1940s. Do you know what I mean? Arum is a white Jew, so. I think he's being accused of some anti-Afro-American bias as much as anything else. But I think it might be cultural insofar as Bob Arum doesn't. He is an old guy. He's got what is he? He's nearly pushing 90, right? He's pushing 90.
Yeah, he can't be far off, can he?
Do you know what I mean? So if he doesn't fully understand how best to market an urban black fighter in 2022, I don't think it makes him racist, and I think it's going to be very hard to prove. I don't know what you reckon.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it, and there's the one side I think it's going to be very difficult to prove that, but also the other side of it is a 90-year-old white man is of course not going to be able to know the best way to promote an African American boxer in the peak of his career, because they lived very, very different lives. They've had very different upbringings, but also they're from completely different eras in terms of what they were brought up with and the situation. Even if you take out the financial side of things being different and their upbringings are different from a different era and different things.
His upbringing would be vastly different to Vasyl Lomachenko's, I imagine, right?
Exactly that.
Because they're from a different era, and you're talking about a white Russian.
Yes.
So I suppose that is the argument that they will come back with. But I just think that if Crawford feels other fighters in the top rank setup, under the top rank umbrella, have been prioritised over him, and he's not getting the best deal. That's why you walk, and he's already voted with his feet because he's already left.
Yes.
But the idea that he's bringing a lawsuit based on career damage, basically, and obviously lost earnings, which is what it.
Unless he's got some sort of proof, Ben. Unless he's got some sort of evidence which we are not aware of, which kind of would, if he's got like some sort of communications between the top rank officials or whatever, putting another fighter ahead of him because of race or or comments of, which haven't been released or something like that, then maybe. But I think outside of like some sort of evidence that we're not aware of, and if we're only basing it on what's out in the in the general public, I think, and this is not to say that it's either way in terms of what I think. I'm just saying it's going to be very difficult to prove in a court of law, I think.
Same
would be my impression.
Yep.
Absolutely. So just before we let you go, Ben, we talked a little bit about this the other week with Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams has been moved as expected. Yeah. I think it's been moved to February. And also there's been talk of moving it out of Wales if the restrictions don't get lifted. Because at the moment, you can't watch live sport, which is you can't watch live sport, but you can go watch sport in a pub. You can go and watch kids football, and I'm not even getting into that now. But at the moment, as we stand, you couldn't, go and watch at the Millennium Stadium anyway. So it would be without a crowd. So then it's no point in doing it in the Millennium Stadium, obviously. However, by February the 5th, which is 2.5 weeks, I think those restrictions will be lifted. They said it'll be over the next 2 weeks that everything will be kind of opening back up. So I'd expect that fight to remain in Cardiff, I think, unless they go back on what they said, which isn't unheard of. But with that fight being moved to February the 5th, does it make any difference really to the fighters, their preparation and things like that?
I wouldn't have thought so. I know that Liam Williams is preparing well because a friend of mine, Mick Gilfall, is a professional boxing trainer who works out of Adam Booth's gym in the Red Hill area. And he says Liam Williams, because he's with Adam Booth now, he's been training well. He's inspired with mixed fighters and stuff. And other fighters too. And he said he's looking good. He's very strong, So I think there were rumours that Williams, and I said it, didn't I, on the show, that he'd had a problem in the gym or that he suffered a concussion in the gym or whatever. And I think obviously he wasn't happy with his training setup because shortly after that he moved, down south and hooked up with Adam Booth. So I think the one beneficiary, in answer to your question, has it made a difference? I think the beneficiary would be Williams because he's had time to get into a new setup. And he sounds upbeat and happy from what I'm hearing. So I think he's in a better place come February 5th than he would have been on the original date, which I think was December, wasn't it? Like the 29th or something.
I think it was December sometime, wasn't it? Which,
But Eubank, he's training in Dubai, isn't he? And he's hanging about with Anthony Joshua. They're sort of working out there, and I'm sure Eubank's always super fit. And I've never seen Eubank come to the ring out of shape, so I don't think it'll make a lot of difference to him. I think Williams it's probably been better that it's taking place for him now.
You just reminded me of something. I can't remember if we talked about this, so I apologise if we did talk about it. But I came across it again this week. It was a video of Chris Eubank Jr. Training and Anthony Joshua's at ringside. And Chris Eubank Jr. is doing like some pad work, and then he did like 5 or 6 quick left hooks.
17 left hooks. I counted it.
And it was like everyone seemed to be. You look at the comments, and everyone's up in arms and like, he's never going to use that in a fight. And it's like, come on, like that part of it. It was like after he'd finished like a set of doing the pads properly, and he was having a bit of fun. And it's like, can people not see that? Am I just? I don't know. I don't understand it at the moment. People.
There's a lot of experts. There's a lot of experts out there who've never trained anybody and never had a fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to box to have a kind of informed, credible opinion on boxing, because absolutely not. Some people who box at the highest level talk rubbish sometimes, quite consistently. And there's other guys who've never been punched in the face who really, really have a fantastic perspective on boxing, and they're good at predicting fights and calling fights and all the rest of it, and they're good at breaking them down. But I do find when people talk about coaching in particular and training, when they haven't been involved in it, it is a bit odd when they're like, "Oh, I prefer realistic pads, me," and it's like, "Okay, well, how often do you hold the pads? When have you ever held pads? Can you hold pads for me now? Do you want to show me through it, or do you know one hand from the other? Let's do it, you know." But I think fighter and trainer are entitled to have a little bit of fun when they're working hard, and that's something you do. You get used to each other a bit, and to throw lots of hooks in a row and to keep throwing them right and keep turning them over, that does have a value because I mean, Danny will understand this, I'm sure. You're drilling something, repetitively. You practice it enough that it's going to give you more kind of speed and kind of timing and agility with throwing that particular shot. In the ring, no, you're not likely to throw. I think 3 is a push, isn't it? A triple left hook, you can do it. Some people will do it. But Roy Jones, I think you see him throw 4 left hooks. I've seen Josh Kelly throw 7 left hooks in a row against very moderate opposition. And I think the guy was knocked out by the time he landed the third one. But I mean that's fine. It's something that is fighter and trainer. Just it's like a ritual, isn't it? And the fact that Anthony Joshua banged the canvas when he did that at that point, you just making yourself feel good. But if somebody did, I remember Muhammad Ali saying when he was a kid and he trained at a gym owned by a black trainer called Fred Stoner on the east side of Louisville, and he said they had to just do 100 jabs over and over again, and if they missed count, they had to start again. Well, Ali had a pretty strong jab, didn't he? Pretty quick jab, pretty well developed. So I wouldn't say you can't throw the same punch several times to try and practice your delivery of it.
No, absolutely not. Is there any big fights coming up over the next couple of weeks, Ben?
I'm trying to think. Well, you've got Amir Khan, Kell Brook, right? That's February 19th. You've got, as long as it happens for the reasons you explained, you've got Eubank Williams on the 5th. You've got Brook versus Khan on the 19th. March is a good month. I'm really looking forward to Michael Mackinson versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. out in the States. That's a very bold, brave fight to take for the Mackinson camp, and obviously they're up against it. But I think it's brilliant. The kid's got so much confidence,
it's going to be an interesting one, that, isn't it?
Back home, you've got John Ryder versus Danny Jacobs on, I think it's March the 12th, which is at Alexandra Palace, which is going to be great. So if we can just get through this dry January, as it were, from a boxing point of view, we've got plenty of exciting things happening in February and March, for sure.
Yeah, just towards the end of February. Well, February is not too bad, is it? And then I think February is pretty good. And then once you look into March, there's some real good fights. Lee Wood versus Michael Conlon, I'm looking forward to as well. I think that's going to be a really good one.
That's a really interesting fight because Lee Wood looks to have improved under Ben Davison. And Conlon was the kind of hotshot superstar he's on track, I would say, in his professional progress, but he's not always impressed everybody, and he's had his logistical problems, So I think if you'd have looked at Lee Wood versus Michael Conlon a couple of years ago and projected in the future they'll be fighting for a version of a world title, I think people would have massively favoured Conlon, in that hypothesis. But now, with Wood being the defending champion, who is also a man in form, and Conlon having been made to look a bit human a few times on his way up to now, I think it's pretty evenly divided, So it is an interesting fight.
Yes, for sure. Okay, I think, Ben, we'll leave it there for this week. As always, really appreciate you coming on and talking boxing with us and giving us a more boxing streamed, no pun intended, sort of kind of look at things. Really helps us out a lot. And I know the people appreciate it. I'm sure you'll be back very soon to chat to us, as there's always something going on. I'm in the studio on Tuesday with Gavin Gwynn as well, so I'm going to be interviewing him, and we're going to be talking obviously his recent deal with MTK, and I think he's just been announced that he's going to fight for the British title as well. So that's maybe nicely for him. Go on.
Perhaps there might be some way you could ask your viewers and regulars if they would like to have coverage of boxing press conferences and interviews from there as well, like a lot of the channels do, because if we did look at moving into that, maybe we could make it work. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. What I'll do is I'll put that up on Patreon as well after the show, so that because the hardcore ones are the ones who are signed up to that as well. But I will put a post out on all the various social medias. So I think it's definitely something, we talked about it briefly before. And I think, look,
I'm certainly
always looking at ways. Say again, sorry.
I'm certainly prepared to go out and do it anyway. So yeah. We could have a conversation.
The best way. It sounds like a good way to take us forward and keep going forward. And I think that's the main thing, isn't it? We all want to keep moving forward and bring in different types of content and interesting content as well. And I think, like I said, I'm interviewing Gavin on Tuesday. I'm hoping to sort out a couple of others as well in the studio in Cardiff. So it's I think that's definitely an option, Ben. I'll put it to the people, but I'm pretty sure they'll say yes. Anyway, appreciate you as ever, Ben, and I'll speak to you very soon, my friend.
Soon, boys. Thank you.
Cheers, Ben.
Ben Doughty, always a pleasure. And yes, mate, I saw, I think it was Gaz said in the chat, Side's on fire with the sponsorship links. In fairness, the Ben set me up beautifully when he said about Dazn, and you can't watch it because it was in America. And I was like, well, I can't miss this opportunity. But it's a real link with real discounts for you people. So do use it. And I've used the ExpressVPN for, years. And it just so happens that then they ended up contacting me and saying, would you be interested in, doing something together? So worked out beautifully for me because it's something I used anyway.
Yeah, I used it when I was out in Dubai for other reasons.
No, actually, when you were feeling lonely and you wanted to protect your internet history. It's another very good thing. They give the cyber security, mate, and the encryption is next level.
It worked really well.
It's incredible. And what I like about it, actually, mate, the ExpressVPN, very quickly, is that it doesn't slow down like your computer and stuff, or your phone, or whatever you've got it. I've got it on my phone. And it just means, like, if you use it. So I watch American Netflix a lot, and Australian, because they got better stuff on that. And with some of VPNs I tried previously, when you switch them on, it would really, like, your phone would just be laggy. Right. Like whenever you use an ExpressVPN on your phone or on your computer, just away you go, and it's like normal.
So I've got to say, when I used it, it was because I'm not very tech orientated, and
so you wanted to be easy, didn't you?
Yeah, it was actually really easy. It was straightforward for me to use and set up. I was really quite pleasantly surprised.
Indeed, yeah. So people, ExpressVPN, expressvpn.com/Ace Nation Army, and if you sign up for the yearly plan, you get 3 months free. That is ludicrous. I'd love to. Someone who's better at maths might be able to tell me what percentage discount that is. But yes, it's a big one. I know that much. Right, Danny, I'll give you 10 minutes to talk through the UFC from last night. Feeling generous. But it was back with a bang, mate. We said, and I don't think that was an exaggeration. To be fair, I think it was pretty bloody good.
It was good.
Not just the main event as well. I thought it was all pretty good.
Yeah, there were some other fights that were good. In fact, one that I think is worth mentioning, not that I watched all the ones on the prelims, but Colt McKee, he's been around for a while now. I think he's like 37 years of age and looking better than he's ever looked. He fought that Ramiz Brahamic, I think is how you pronounce it, an up-and-coming young, tenacious fighter, physically looks very, very strong. But Colt McKee just does what Colt McKee does, which is like smother you against the fence, put the grind on you, and then put the striker on you a little later in the rounds, and then go back to the grind. And he literally just ground down on this guy. He just looked like a dad putting a little beat on his teenage son because he's getting a bit too big for his boots. And really impressive performance. I can see that he's going to start getting back up onto that main card and start making some noises in that division. So, if anyone out watched anything other than a main card, that is one to watch, because I think you're going to see a Colt McKee that's going to be looking to make some new waves late in his career. It was the first one for we had that Bochev was the first one, wasn't it, on the main card versus Dakota Bush. Bochev's been looking really impressive, hasn't he, with his striking? But Dakota Bush started off really, really well, looking really rangy with the striking, looking really intent, and also shooting him some lovely takedowns on Bochev, and was really looking great. But as the round began to progress, I don't know whether he looked hurt or you just got that first round gas feeling coming onto him. But about a minute and a half left of the first round, started to really dissolve. I started to almost look hurt physically. But he did get hurt physically because it looked like a body shot that really started to down him. Berchov just went on a striking rampage, knocked him to the ground. It was very, very quickly over all of a sudden. Really looking like a menace. It looks like this guy really strikes hard. So, yeah, definitely one to look out for as well, and someone else that's going to be coming up through the ranks.
Spot on, mate. I just want to say, by the way, very quickly, on ExpressVPN, the discount works out that, like, financially, is with the discount, it works out at the moment. The discount which we're offering is 51% off.
Wow.
That's
quite
one
something.
hell of a discount, and that's if you sign up for the 12-month period. So you can do it per month, you could do it every 6 months, but if you sign up to make a payment and you get 3 extra months free, it works out with the discount as well. Instead of paying what would be £147 for the year, you pay £75. So that is some top quality, and you can pay by
really
Bitcoin
good
as well.
Right.
What a sponsor! I'm really happy with that. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. Worth mentioning for sure.
Another, I'm going to make up a little image. You know, like the fighters have got with all their different sponsors and brand partners. I'm going to make something up like that, I think, for us, because we've got a few on board now. So it's good to promote our partners and sponsors and all this good stuff. So let's go. We got the next one was the ladies, wasn't it? And I thought I thought this was a really good fight.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Jennifer Maia obviously and Chookagian, they had fought previously, with Chookagian being victorious that time around. It was no different in terms of result this time around, again, with Chookagian taking the victory on the unanimous decision. But Jennifer Maia did come out with some mean intentions with that crosshand. But just because a couple of them connected, I think she started to bank on it a little bit too much and make it a little too obvious. And it was getting herself set up for the takedown, which was not really nice to see Chookagian not only play long-range game, but she was actually pushing close and getting the takedowns and looking pretty proficient on the ground as well. Chookagian is looking every bit better than she's ever looked. And she's talking and making noises about fighting Shevchenko again. I think that's absolutely viable. I think she could bring some more difficulties than previously that she's done. So it was a great fight. It's nice to see Jennifer Maia, like I say, even though she lost again, it was nice to see that she had those dangerous hands. It's just it's like she got a new tool to her weapons and then overused it, and that's kind of what I saw there. Really, she got a great crosshand, which I'm sure is going to put many a lady on their ass. But Chookagian was just too experienced. Once she started noticing that was the one that was whizzing past a little bit close, she started to counter it with a takedown and clinch. That said, I'm not writing Jennifer Maia off by any stretch. I think she'll still keep advancing. I think this could be a matchup in the future that we'll see for a third time around. I really think that's possible. And I think each time Jennifer Maia is going to bring something new to the table. But one thing she needs to bring to the table next time is a little bit more experience with those new skill sets that she's acquiring.
Do you think Caitlin Chookagian can trouble Shevchenko? Honestly,
I honestly
think
that I don't think she's going to trouble her in a way where I think she's going to win. And but that said, I think she's going to be figuring out more of the puzzle. I think she's going to do better than previously. But it's just so hard to write someone off that's been so dominant in the division, isn't it? But you never know. I mean, look what happened in the other division. One of the biggest female shock results that we've ever seen. So you can never be too sure. She's definitely a developing fighter. Definitely someone that's honing her skills, honing her style, and I think she'll be able to stay in there with Shevchenko more solidly than previously. So just got to get that one on again, I think, in that division.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I mean, it's the way Chookagian's kind of come back and she's got a bit of a run of fights going now. You can't not give her the fight because she's lost previously.
Yeah.
like at the back of my head, I just look at Shevchenko and she just looks so talented. So she looks so dominant to everyone, including Shikagi. I find it difficult to imagine her losing. But look, you never know. We said that about Amanda Nunes. She got starched.
She did. That was her epic fight.
Well, you know, so it's
and a lot of it is just having belief in yourself, and that's what we saw there. You know, Penna had belief in herself, and she showcased all the way through and pulled off an incredible victory. You know, who's to say that Shikagan hasn't reached that point where she can believe in herself so much that she actually does trouble Shevchenko? It absolutely could happen. It's just that obviously because of the dominance, it makes it hard to envisage, but anything can happen. I think the women's division is alive, and there's a lot of interesting matchups still to be had out there.
Indeed, mate, indeed. Next up, we had Brandon Royval defeating Rogerio Bonatorin via a split decision. I got a feeling you enjoyed this one.
I did enjoy this one, but I didn't agree with the decision. It
was close.
Yeah, it was close, but I just thought the takedowns would have counted a little bit more than they did. I felt like Bonatorin was 2 rounds up. I really believed that. I was perhaps more shocked than others. It'd be interesting to see what the listeners thought of the result. But I really didn't think Royval won it. I just didn't think that. He was quite violent when he had the chance to do so, but also made a lot of strategical and tactical errors. Got himself taken down a little bit too easily, I think.
Interesting, mate. Interesting. Yeah. I that is so close. I had it down as basically whoever wins. You know, those ones which is just so close.
I think I think the thing what went against Bonatorin was the fact that he held so long when he did get Royval down. He was holding very, very tight and wasn't being very violent with any of the controls in top position. Whereas when Royval got on top, particularly in the last round, you know, it was just looking really menacing. It looks like he just had mean intentions on the feet, mean intentions on the ground. He, you know, was just trying to be more violent. And I think that's perhaps what pushed it for the judge's eye.
Yeah, I could.
But a good, exciting fighter, though. I mean, I've got nothing against the kid.
It was a great fight. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, Brandon Royval, I've got nothing against him. I think his style super, super exciting. I just think he overextended himself at times. And I think against a more proactive grappler, you know, if he gets taken down like he's getting taken down in this fight, you know, he's going to be on the wrong end of results.
Yes.
But definitely intent, definitely tenacious, definitely confident in his abilities to do damage. He didn't actually get any damage really off on Bonatorin. Bonatorin was, to me, controlling the affair quite well in terms of the potential proactive damage that Royval was clearly wanting to put upon him. I think, you know, up against a lesser fighter, Royval would have looked really, really devastating and, you know, absolute menacing. But I think Bonatorin was doing great to control that animal in him and the animal in his style, but it never reflected through in the result, unfortunately. But look, it's a split decision. So obviously some people thought it my way, but you know, I'm not a judge specialist, so I'll just let it be. You know, it was close enough for it to go the other way where, you know, I'm not totally disgusted, but I just felt that he did enough to win in terms of the control time that he had with the takedowns.
Good stuff. Co-main event, Jake Collier defeated Chase Sherman via submission, rear naked choke, just 2.5 minutes into the first round.
Yeah, both contrasting striking styles. You've got Sherman that stands upright and quite tall, but got really good form with his hands, just not really a lot of head movement, almost Thai boxer-esque style about his form. Then you had Collier that comes forward like a real boxer, like a real brute that just wants to get in the pocket and mix it. Yeah, he was throwing his hands, moving his head clearly off centre, you know, almost too much in terms of what you typically see in the heavyweight division. But Sherman having his head on the centre was meaning that, you know, a couple of the hands did get through to him. Collier was getting hit with stuff too, but Collier really mixed it up. He shot in as well. And that's the nice thing about being able to punch and push through into the pocket. It opens up other opportunities such as calf kicks and takedowns. And he decided to go with the takedown variety. And Sherman looked a little lost, to be honest, on the ground. Once Collier got on top and was being aggressive, Sherman didn't have a lot of ability, it appeared, to stop the brutality coming down upon him. And trust me, in that weight division, if you're on your back, you want to have some kind of capabilities of stopping the damage coming down on you, because they hit hard from on top. And not only that, it just didn't show any capabilities of being able to scramble up, and wasn't working towards the fence to help him up. It's like he had no clue on what to do. He looked very, very lost on his back. But look, great performance from that Collier. Loved his style. He comes out racing from the bell and looks to get tucked in. Let's hope that he don't do it so mindlessly as it appeared, that he could get himself knocked out against another hard hitter. But being that he's moving his head so much when he throws, it appears that he's fully aware that these big guys hit hard back in return, and he's kind of prepared for that. So I think he's got enough savvy there, and the fact that he's willing to mix it up with takedowns is really exciting for me. And I think we got some, new kid on the block that could start making some future waves in that division. I think it's all well welcomed in that division, to be honest.
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Then we had the main event. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we'll talk about it a bit more. Calvin Kattar defeated Giga Kajazi by unanimous decision in the main event. Calvin Kattar was pretty incredible in this fight. And Chikazi, the punishment that he took was unreal.
Yeah. I've never seen Chikazi get hit so many times. He's normally so elusive. He's normally the one that's in control of range. He likes to play long. He likes to get in, dump off his load, and get back out into range. But Kattar did the exact right thing. This was all about range management for him. It's about pushing close, invading Giga's space, not allowing him to express his full dexterity of strikes, which is quite numerous out of range. He did the right thing, and any opportunity to get in on the hips and work a takedown and just try and take away the pace and the range controllability from Chikazi, it was just brilliant from Kattar. It was just a great tactic, a great strategy, clearly had a game plan, clearly stuck true to it, and pushed through round after round. It was a very, very good performance, epic performance. And also, look back at some of those spinning elbows that he did, and forward facing elbows. Some of them are really hitting prime, and did a lot of damage. I think we could safely say that Giga was expressing the fight on his face more than any other fight I've ever seen before. He even showed it in his demeanor when he's backpedaling. His head was wobbling a little bit. You knew fatigue was hitting in, but Kattar just had faith in that range, the ability to be able to push close. One thing I did notice different about Kattar's defense than we've seen previously when he was getting caught and he got his loss marked up against his name, was that he was blocking tight with both hands and not one and extending the other. He was defending with both hands tight before launching off his counterattacks and attacks. So that was nice to see that he had clearly tried to make an adaptation on some weaknesses that got exposed in previous fights, and moving on, making an evolution of himself. It was really, really good to see. Kattar, he's the man. Love watching him fight. He's a little bit like Poirier, isn't he? He just turns up. He's fit every time. He wants to get into a fight every time, and just so good at his job. And that's all the impression you get of these type of athletes. You get a sense that they love what they do. They're in it and they're enjoying the fight of it, not just as martial artists, but they're enjoying the fight aspect of it. Because my God, he was wanting to get nose to nose, and it made great viewership for us fans.
Yes, mate, 100%. I thought it was a real banger, and what a way to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It was off with a banger. It absolutely was. And UFC just doesn't disappoint. And how often are we getting disappointing shows? And it's not just even UFC, it's down to many other factors. It's matchmakers, it's the fighters. There's many other things that are making it that these fights are just so epic. But my goodness, it had me on the edge of my seat, and I just can't wait for each weekend. I know there's a UFC event on, because you're in for a treat.
Yes, indeedy, mate. Yes, indeedy. Some big fights coming up over the coming weeks and months. Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya is getting personal real quick. I know they didn't like each other, but soon as that's been sort of floated, I don't know if it's been officially announced, but it's if it's not, it's done basically. But it certainly seems that way. I'm just going to check if it's been officially announced, but they've been exchanging words.
Who are you going to go for on that? I'm actually going to go Whittaker on this one. I think Whittaker's
He's got the
seen
motivation,
some.
mate. He is not happy.
No, I think he's seen some holes in his game. The fact that he went up a weight and got taken down the way he did. I just think he's going to strike, get Adesanya into a sense of striking and try to get that takedown hard.
February 13th. I thought it was. I just wanted to double check. That is a card. So the 3 fights announced for that card is the main event. Then you've got Jared Cannonier versus Derek Brunson and Kyler Phillips versus Marcel Rojo. So that's a good little card building up some good prelims on there too. So yeah, look, I think Whittaker's got the motivation, and like you say, I think he feels like in his head like he's found a chink in the armor of Israel Adesanya. Adesanya's been out for a while. People forgetting like it's been a while since he's fought. Robert Whittaker's been fairly active. I'm just gonna have a quick look how.
Was it about 6 months ago that he fought? I don't think it was too crazy long ago.
I don't think
because he fought at heavyweight, then he went back down to his weight, didn't he?
Let's have a look. Stupid computer's not working. Yeah, I don't think it's as long as I think it is. I think it's we get these fights so thick.
We just had so many fights. That's the thing.
Fast, it's difficult in your mind to work out the time frames and stuff. Let me bring up the UFC rankings. It's probably the quickest way to do it. But so you think Garnier next week, right? He
fought Vettori. Yeah, about 6 months ago, June, he fought Adesanya. He had that wicked. He had that epic fight against Vettori. So I don't think.
Since they fought, since Adesanya fought Whittaker, Adesanya's fought
four times.
4 times since he fought Whittaker. And how many times has Whittaker fought since?
I think that's about the same. I'm just going to have a look now.
Adesanya's fought. So who's he fought? He's fought Costa, who he starched. So he fought Romero, Costa.
He's fought 3 times.
And Vettori.
3 times.
And then Whittaker's fought only 3 times. Oh, didn't he break his hand or something?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, but he's been looking good, though.
Yeah, he looked really good in that last fight. I remember he looked exceptional. He also fought Silva as well, didn't he? Adesanya. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that little bout. It's that UFC London card, mate. Is the one. Can't wait for that. The way that is shaping up. I think pretty much every UFC star wants, like every British-based UFC guy is looking to get on that card, but there's a few who I think deserve to be featured prominently on that card. Sure. I got to say, I saw Jake Hadley's opponent pulled out. The Figueiredo brother pulled out, but they've replaced him with someone else who's not as. I'm not actually aware of who, like the person, but I was disappointed for Jake because I think there was a bit of needle there. But it is what it is, isn't it? These things happen, but Jake's got that fight. I think that's on the London card. You've got Tom Aspinall, Molly McCann, Jack Shaw has been doing a few interviews with the BBC and stuff. You've got Paddy is training. You've got Leon Edwards. You've got all sorts of Darren Till is due to fight soon. Who else is there? I'm trying to think. I'm showing it. Arnold, Allen. And they normally would get, I think maybe in the past they've got a couple of cage warriors. Jai Herbert announced he's fighting. Normally they might add a couple of cage warriors fighters there. But I think they're so stacked. All those names, you fight them against, if they're fighting like American fighters, that's the whole card.
Yeah, we're getting some depth. We're getting some depth of ability now. The UK really British, is on that world class level. Yeah.
Looking forward to it, mate. But anyway, that's us. Just over 2 hours. Not too bad at all. Well, Michael will be back on with us anyway. I think once he gets his fight announced, we'll get him back on.
Yeah, it was great talking to the guy. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Really enjoyed talking to him. I'm sure we'll see his brother at some point soon. Without telling any breaking any unannounced stuff. I'm sure we'll see his brother soon. Next week, mate, little treat. We've got Chris Fishgold joining us. Tell the people a bit about Chris Fishgold.
Well, before we even do that, also as well, it's something that you had messaged me about, and I didn't get a chance to reply. But we're also going to be getting Brad Pickett on, so that's really exciting news. So we're having a hell of a start to 222. So all looking really, really good. What with sponsors and getting all these different fighters coming on, and we could have another fighter lined up to come on as well, which you know about, that we've been messaging about. That's linked with Brad. We just got to nail that down, and that's looking promising as well. Sweet. So yeah, all good things. Good things coming. Mate.
Got some stuff to do this week as well with our show. And also, what I'll do is for next week's show is I'll make sure I've got a clip of my interview with Gavin in the studio on Tuesday, because that's going to be really looking forward to that. Getting in the studio with Gavin. He's bringing his belt as well. So there we go.
Yeah, good stuff.
And he's just been announced he's fighting for the British title. So lots to talk about. But Chris Fishgold, mate, tell the people a little bit, just a quick little overview, I guess. Yeah, he fought Kelvin Qatar back in the
a monster of a man. You know, what more do you want to say than that? You know, anyone that goes and watches anything that he's done, he's got some intentions, and mean ones at that.
Yes, indeed. Really looking for. I'm so excited to talk to Chris next week. I really cannot wait. So, tune in. Don't miss out. We'll be back next week. Check out. Make sure you subscribe. All that good stuff. And of course, check out Manscaped. Use the code ACE Nation, 20% off, free shipping, and expressvpn.com/ACE Nation Army for a 50% discount. Unreal. Until then, we bid you a farewell. Thank you.